fluid. We're not going to push the proteins out or the blood cells out. We're talking mainly the fluids are getting pushed out.
So is that how the oxygen gets out?
It's diffusing out, yes. It's the same. It's a different process, but at the same time it's diffusing out, and CO2 is diffusing back in.
Even with that pressure difference, the CO2 can get in?
Yeah, because it's just working against it's working through the simple squamous actual cells. Rather than between the cells, this is going between the cells.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, one more time, let's go over what's going on at the arterial end of the capillary. We've got two competing pressures. We've talked so far about blood pressure, and blood pressure pushes against the walls of our vessels. When blood pressure comes through the arterial end of the capillary, we're working with around 35 millimeters of mercury pushing out, okay? So we've got a fairly high pressure coming into the arterial end. One thing we haven't considered so far is what we call osmotic pressure. Osmotic pressure remains a fairly constant 26 across the length of our capillary. That is not pushing, but rather pulling fluid. You might recall from osmosis, if you stick a cell into a hypertonic or a hypotonic solution, water is going to be pulled to the area that has more what? Solutes. So in this case, we've got more solutes than proteins inside of our vessel, so they have pulling power that's approximately 26 millimeters of mercury. So they're pulling in those fluids while the blood pressure is pushing out those fluids. All you have to do is look at the pressures here and say, okay, 35 is greater than 26, 35 is aiming to push out, 26 is trying to pull in, so the greater of the two pressures wins. 35 is going to push those fluids out into the interstitial space. We're talking mostly the blood plasma fluids here. Not really going to take the solutes or the proteins with it. We're just pushing the fluids out into the interstitial space. Such high pressure is going to continually push and push and push fluid out. So notice as we get over here toward the venial end of the capillary, we've pushed out so much of our fluid. What's happened to the blood pressure? It has dropped around 15 to 17 millimeters of mercury of pressure at the venial end. Blood pressure is the same thing as hydrostatic pressure. So this time we're pushing out with less pressure. The 26 hasn't changed. Osmotic pressure is pulling fluids toward those solutes and proteins. So we're pulling in with a greater pressure. So 26 is stronger than 15 or 17. So what are we doing with fluids now? Pulling them in. 26 is stronger, so the current's going to bring that fluid back into the venial end of your capillary. So now we say fluids are pulled in. What are they pulled in by?
Pressure.
Osmotic pressure. And what is osmotic pressure created from?
The presence of those solutes.
Exactly, presence of those solutes and proteins. Let me give you two words. These are words we didn't discuss in biotreatment when we talked about membrane transport. We talked about diffusion, facilitated diffusion, osmosis. We never mentioned this word filtration to you. But what's happening here at this arterial end of your capillary is filtration. Filtration is going to push fluids out. So filtration is what's going on down here. Process at your venial end of the capillary is not filtration, but rather what? Reabsorption. Reabsorption. Good. Reabsorption pulls those fluids back in the capillary. So it's a battle between blood pressure and the solutes and proteins. So, of course, you know, under ideal conditions, this is what's going to help pull those fluids back in at that venial end. So what goes out will mostly get pulled back in, but there is fluid that stays out here in the interstitial space that's picked up by the alternate route. The alternate route is the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system has vessels that weave their way through all of these cells, and they're like open doors. They're saying, come this way, come on in. So pressure actually will flow into those lymphatic vessels. So any excess fluids that are not reclaimed by reabsorption can travel back to the heart by way of your lymphatic system. So that's kind of a sneak preview of our next chapter, talking about, respiratory and lymphatic systems. But in case there's any fluids that are not reclaimed through reabsorption, they can get picked up by those open door lymphatic vessels, which are welcoming pressure to come into them.
Is that dump in the right atrium or somewhere downstream?
Subclavian.
Subclavian.
Yeah, they go back into the subclavian, so eventually it gets it back into blood flow.
So with reabsorption coming back into the capillary, what is coming in? Is any old fluid?
Mostly fluids, could be some solutes coming back in, but for the most part, we're talking fluids out, and then we're talking interstitial fluid coming back into the vessel. When does edema occur? Edema is what? Swelling. Edema occurs when you have more fluids going out and less coming back in. So you could say that edema occurs when filtration exceeds reabsorption. More coming out, less coming back in. Sure, filtration occurs when you have edema occurs when you have filtration exceeding reabsorption. Okay, so edema occurs when filtration exceeds reabsorption. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say, so that's why when somebody has like high blood pressure, they swell?
Yes.
Kind of the net pressure and the arterial end would be like around 8, and then negative on the other end. Without a calculator, I don't do negative.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, let me take you there real quick. If you'll flip on over with me to page 64.
It's pretty easy though just to track that.
Pretty much. On the top of 64, Carla's talking about the NFP, it's net filtration pressure, and she's right. It's real simple math. All they're doing is saying if you've got 35 pushing out and 26 pulling in, the overall net difference, they say, is approximately 10 millimeters of mercury pushing out. I guess if you did the math here, it'd be 9. But they're accounting for some of those pressures in the interstitial space. So NFP here is a positive 10 millimeters of mercury pressure. Positive means we're pushing it out, okay? And if you come down here, if you take the 26 and this range of 15 to 17, the 26 is pulling in, the 15 to 17 is pushing out. This time we have negative pressure, so the NFP or net filtration pressure here at the venial end, they say is approximately negative 8 millimeters of mercury. 8 means it's going to be pulling the fluids back into the venial end of the capillary. So all we're doing is we're taking these values at the arterial end, doing some simple addition and subtraction, and same thing with this other venial end here. We're just doing some simple math to see that all it does is tells us, hey, fluids push out at the arterial end, fluids get reabsorbed back down here at the venial end. That's the bottom line with NFP. How do you feel with this?
Glad the test is not Thursday.
I know, that's a good thing. What I'd like to do with you is come back on Thursday and restart this process and kind of cover this one more time.